Right, my name is Angelo Kalum Cavagnaro. I am a Nisga'a sculptor from the village of Gitlachdamix, BC, which is New Wayanch. And I'm also a painter and an amateur poet. I'm a 2013 graduate of the Frida Deasing School of Northwest Coast Art. And prior to that program, I didn't know I was going to become an artist. But I did have some experience in high school with a little bit of jewelry, some carving, some drawing, so like my intro, and then it really helped me go through the program and afterwards too. Outside of nature and the stories, it's also the urge, it's also the stress relief on top of the act of creation, because not only do you feel good about doing it, you feel good after it too. So those are the kind of things I'm kind of gathering to put in my art, so to speak, yeah. I do see myself as a part of the carving community in the Nisga'a Nation, but it's not as close-knit as you would think as other groups. It's kind of just like once you do make a couple pieces, you kind of just casually come into the information of who else does it, and after graduating and finishing a couple pieces and putting them around locally, I've actually had some older artists who I didn't know practice art, give me some good advice, and it actually inspired them to keep at it as well. So that's definitely one of the, outside of trying to sell and make money, that's a really good part of it too. I think it's important not as so much as rules, but more of like the best principles to keep in mind when you're creating, because sometimes, like, if you're struggling with a new concept or a new idea, right, or because all the older people say everything's been done before, right? So you kind of just go back to old concepts from the stories, or even the old perspectives on things, and even looking at other people's traditional knowledge helps, as long as you're not misappropriating it, and you're not, as long as you give respect of where you got that knowledge from. That's really important in any traditional knowledge. I think technology is always important. But the knowledge of technology is different today than how it was back then. And so if you look at the older pieces, they were made with less technology, but they had more knowledge of what they were doing. Versus today, you can make anything out of anything. But is it going to be regarded in the same way as 200 years as what we're studying now? It's hard to say. But the act of utilizing your meaning and putting your art into a physical way is something that robots will never replace that. So technology is good, but it's also has its limits, as we as humans do. I think that now we have to use this technology to do it now. It's like, I'm meeting with you. This is my second Zoom meeting ever in my life. So and this is something that I realized you have to do now. So it's always been in a state of change, but the ability to adapt to these changes shows an individual or a grouping's intelligence, and that reflects in the art and in other ways too. I was raised in New Wayanch. I was born in a car on the highway before it was paved in the 90s. And then, so being raised in a small town, you didn't have the access to go to the store at any time. So my upbringing consisted of, you loaded up in your car, went to town early in the day, gathered all your food, all the stuff you needed to do. And then you just, you get enough food for like a month if you're good. And then, so basically it's like two different worlds. Go from the small village to, it's not even a big town, Terraces. I'm literally an hour away from home, so I wasn't raised here, but my girlfriend was, and it has shaped, because I have, moving forward with my younger village perspective, living here in Terrace. Like, it's not that big of a change, but to go from, you have to adapt, and then, but my community shaped me by just walking around the village, just enjoying the weather, hanging out, riding bikes, hitting jumps, getting hurt, that kind of stuff. Well, I've only lived in the north, so I don't know too much of what it would like for other urban artists, like even as far as PG, even, I can say that I feel more spoiled up here in the north because I have more access to the woods that we need, to the natural shellfish that's here, right? Like, it's important too, because it reflects us. I see humans as physical embodiments of whatever land they're living on, and all human cultures represent that in one way or shape or form. And it's really impactful for me because it's something that I draw from a lot. And not only that, is that when you go back into older stories of any group, they always talk about the land. They always talk about some kind of spiritual resemblance to it, right? Like, if you can understand that perspective, you're right. So I do understand that the limits of being in the north, as there's less people, which means there's less people that want to buy art. So although I do, I've pretty much gotten to a comfortable habit of creating, producing, and finishing a piece. It's just the selling and the marketing part that, there's an ongoing learning curve, but that's fine. Not everything's not supposed to be easy anyways. So. Yes, I am going to say it because I'm biased, because I haven't really studied too much of the rest of Canadian or even North American, like modern or contemporary stuff. But like, just in like, I don't know much of the East Coast, but from whatever that I've watched, whether it be Kids in the Hall or Much Music, right? You can get that kind of aesthetic, right? It's more, they say it's flat. I've never been there yet. I do want to go there. It's kind of tougher now in this day and age, but going across Canada is still it's not impossible now, but I do consider BC to have its own aesthetic, just in terms of like, most people that practice art, whether they be Indigenous or non-Indigenous, they always incorporate land, air, and water in some way, shape, or form. Like, it goes from the watercolors that are in the Cascading Mountains. It goes from the oil paintings that are, a boat on a dock, right? Like not to say that the rest of Canada doesn't have it, but it's just that the ease of access to these areas are just a little bit, it's just better to be here in BC to access it. Like when we went down to drop off our pieces this summer, we got to see the province again, like, as opposed to like last year, I moved her back from Vancouver in the dead of winter, and then we go down in the summer to drop off art. Mm-hmm. There were still degrees of extreme weather because the flooding was insane, and it kind of just goes into the BC aesthetic. It's wild here. Like, no matter what, you talk about the highways, like, nowadays you see a lot of people here in the province now with different license plates, but they can't really drive on the highways like we can, right? So that in itself is its own beastie aesthetic too.
Yeah.
I've heard of people from Saskatchewan coming to the Nass because it's a really windy highway up here. They told me that they had to pull over and relieve themselves a couple of times because they weren't used to the G forces. I didn't imagine where my art career would go after graduation, but I'm glad to know that 7 years later that it's still a fun journey, as fun as it was when first learning. And like because that I worked a day job and practiced art in my free time in that span of years, it kind of gives me a better understanding of how people are living, because I can understand the working person, and I can understand the creative person and the struggles in between. And honestly, this pandemic gave me more time to focus on the art, to be away from things that you don't need, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people are understanding all over the planet, really. Like if you see it, and like our world got smaller, but it also got bigger too. And that's probably never going to change, as we are never changing, right? We're always in a state of growth, and and I'm just glad that I was able to get this opportunity to put my piece in a show, to be invited. I didn't, it was my first time getting affiliated with that kind of stuff, getting out of my comfort zone in the North. And I really have to thank my girlfriend a lot, because she's the one that helped supported me, kept, motivating me. And yeah, I do have to owe a lot of my success to her, even though that I was still doing my own thing before she came into the picture. But now it's just like, okay, we can do art now.